This is the Dzogchen Sende Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. This is Yoda early Monday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. But how does meditation work? Let me jump back for a second. Together, Together, let us sit and breathe and notice and relax. But how does this all work? When we indulge our controlling tendencies and over-focus as well as over-analyze, we cannot help but so exhaust our dorsolateral as well as our medial prefrontal cortices right behind our forehead that we trigger our amygdala, the seat of both anxiety and aggression, which is quite the drag. Fortunately, when we passively cooperate with the autonomic nervous system, which is simply, I should say, with the core of our autonomic nervous system, which is simply our spinal cord, the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala is calmed, and the empathy of our anterior cingulate gyrus is gently stimulated. Sounds great. Sign me up. How do we do this? Let's begin with mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, which could be described as the core of our sympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way. It has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice all mind's antics of perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. All of them, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. Well, what are we to do with all that stuff that we notice? That brings us to meditation. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access both the tippy top as well as the very bottom of that exact same spinal cord. These two regions, working as a team, comprise the core of our parasympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release during our exhalation to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even as, non-graspable as a vast empty void. When I was in the 4th grade at Platte Ranch Elementary School, I was taught of similes. And I came to understand eventually that a simile is only as effective as it is relatable. Therefore, we have to ask the question, what? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable, vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could be tantalizing to the eye, feels non-graspable to the hand? Or in other words, feels intangible when we strive to grasp at it, but cannot. And so we see that emptiness is just a metaphor for the fleeting experience of non-graspability, an experience latent within our exhalation, an experience that is not dependent upon belief, that is not dependent upon theory. It is already in our central nervous system, like an app on our smartphone running in the background. Only the question is, will we persist in actively competing against our autonomic nervous system or passively cooperating with it? But what about this whole idea of no self? What does that mean? Well, if emptiness is a metaphor, is it possible no self is also a metaphor? Think of it this way. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever experience of self we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and as non-graspable as a vast empty void. There's this myth that if only we mastered emptiness, if only we mastered no self, we would never suffer. No, that's not the case. We have evolved to experience the full spectrum of perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. All of them. From the interesting to the boring, from the pleasurable to the painful. All of them. Our job is not to pick and choose. That's where suffering comes from. Our job is to notice and relax. That's how we cope with the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. The moment you have a specific question about, Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I strive to check for questions about every 6 minutes or so. Let's check the time. It's 11 minutes after the hour. That means I wish to meditate with you for the next 44 minutes. So 44 divided by 2 is 22 for our first set of 22 minutes. Let us gently invite our subtle energies to coalesce in the crown of our head. Those who are prone to ritual and superstition would call this inviting the teacher as from afar, or Lama Kino. There's a much easier way to do that. It does not involve the carping prayers. It's a two-step process. We'll begin with our breathing. I will use a respiratory reference point. And here's how that works. As we feel air enter our nostrils, we can silently and mentally recite the verb noticing. As we feel air exit our nostrils, we can silently and mentally recite the verb relaxing. Noticing and relaxing does not make our mind notice and relax. Our mind is already noticing and relaxing. We play with the verbs, noticing and relaxing, to remind our volition, our intention, to take a relaxing break from the exhausting habit of actively competing against our own autonomic nervous system, and instead to cooperate with its natural tendencies to notice and relax in harmony with our breathing. Yes, meditation is that easy. And mindfulness and meditation are the keys that unlock the door to remaining six folds of the Buddha's path of enlightenment. Perhaps that is why in the second to the final passage of his discourse on the four bases of mindfulness, the Buddha explained that one could master this path in as little as 7 days. There is a second method we can employ to gently coax our subtle energies to coalesce at the crown of our head. We can use the tip of our left index finger to support the lower knuckle of our right index finger. Palms up in our lap. Doing this not only helps to coax our subtle energies to coalesce at our crown, but helps us to keep track of our first collection of 12 sets of 12 inhalations. In addition to touching the tip of our left index finger to our right hand's lower knuckle of its index finger, there's something else we can do with our left hand. We could touch the tip of our left thumb to the lower set of creases of its little finger, thus keeping track of our first set, a first of 12 sets of 12 inhalations. But how do we count the actual 12 inhalations? We do that on our right hand. Now, it's most ergonomically sound. Rest your hands palms up in your lap. I'm lifting them up so you can follow along. With each inhalation, every time we silently and mentally recite the verb noticing during our inhalation, we can advance our right thumb across the sets of creases found upon the underside of our fingers. Together, let us do this right now. Having come to the final set of creases upon my right index finger, I return my attention to my left thumb and advance it now to the next set of creases. And so you get the basic idea of how we can count 12 sets of 12 inhalations each. Doing so could take approximately 12 minutes. At the conclusion of which, we will start gathering our second collection of 12 sets, and keeping track of that by moving the left index finger from the lower knuckle to the second knuckle. Now that's a lot of information, so allow me to remind you that repetition is the mother of skill. Checking for questions. Checking for questions. And now we begin gathering our second collection of 24 sets of 24 inhalations. Oh, I miscounted. That's on me. Sorry. We're still working our first set, our first collection of 12 sets of 12 inhalations. I got turned around. Now I shall check for questions. Let's now let us now begin gathering our second collection of 12 sets of 12 inhalations each. An interesting way for us to keep track of our next collection of 144 inhalations is for us to use the tip of our left middle finger to support the lower knuckle of our right middle finger, palms up, and our lap. This change of digits also serves to gently invite our subtle energies to coalesce at our chest. We'll make a subtle adjustment to our respiratory frame of reference. As we feel our chest swell with breath, we can silently and mentally recite the verb noticing. As we feel our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale, we can silently and mentally recite the verb relaxing. If you've just joined us, in addition to using our left fingertip to support our left middle fingertip to support the lower knuckle of our right middle finger, we're also going to use our left thumb to keep track. We're going to touch our left thumb to the lower set of creases of its little finger, thus keeping track of 12 sets of 12 inhalations. We'll use our right thumb to keep track of the actual inhalations. As we breathe in and silently and mentally recite the verb noticing, we can advance our thumb across the sets of creases found on the underside of our palm. Let us practice together right now. It's most ergonomically sound to rest your hands in your lap. I'm just lifting them up so it's easier for you to see what I'm doing. Having come to the final set of creases on my right index finger, I've run out of places to count, so I return my attention to my left thumb and advance it to the next set of creases. And now you get the basic idea of how to count 12 sets of 12 inhalations each. If it seems confusing, remember, repetition is the mother of skill. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's dusk explanation and practice of meditating like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.